Let's talk right now about Ukraine, and in particular that Alaska summit between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin on Friday. It was a small matter of Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, not being invited to that meeting, where they apparently are going to decide possibly on a peace deal. But can you have a peace deal over a country where the leader of that country is not even in the talks? Well, let's talk about that with Hamish to Bretton Gordon, OBE. He's a former British Army colonel and joins us now. Very good morning to you, Hamish.
Good morning,
Thanks
Julia.
for joining us. I mean, you've been very supportive over, our support for Ukraine over recent years since that invasion in February 22. It does look like Donald Trump, he says he wants peace. He thought he could get peace within 24 hours of getting into office in January. That's not happened. How concerned are you, or how hopeful are you that we could see a peace deal that the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian president could live with on Friday?
Well, that is a heck of a question there, Julia. I think, first of all, it's good that they're meeting, at least. I personally would like to be there and arrest Putin myself for the war crimes he's been indicted for and those yet to come. But that is
which is, of course, why he can't come to Europe, yes.
Entirely. And having the negotiations about as far away as Ukraine as you can get on the planet, and without Zelensky, or a representative at least from Ukraine, does seem to be absolutely bonkers. And we know that Putin hasn't changed his maximalist approach. He wants to subjugate the whole of Ukraine. He keeps saying that, always has done. But at least they're talking, and Trump seems to be having very much taken the Russian side until the last few months, seems to be at least agreeing that the Ukrainians do have a peace here. But you're absolutely right. Is it going to be a just deal? I'm not sure it will be, and it can't be without Zelensky. I know that he's suggesting that he might cede some territory to the Russians, but it's very different from what the Russians want. So,
well, indeed, the Russians want the whole of Ukraine. I mean, again, Vladimir Putin believes that Ukraine is Russian, end of, nothing to discuss. But it's interesting, Donald Trump seemed to be getting much more hardline with Putin in the last couple of months. There was some hope that, he's finally woken up to the fact that he's being played by Vladimir Putin, and frankly, looking like a chump on the world stage, which is what he has been looking like over this issue. Oh, he's my friend, he's a good guy. No, he's not. He's not either of those things. But it looked like it was a warming of relationships with Zelensky. But then yesterday again, he heaped praise on Putin when he confirmed that Zelensky would not be invited to the Alaska meeting. But there's the big concern, isn't it? What they're going to be discussing and what's going to happen. And we've seen some years ago, was it 2018, where they met up, and they met for something like an hour and a half on their own, no one else in the room, big question marks about what was said, totally unprecedented for world leaders to be in that scenario. And the reality of just that, he wants peace pretty much at any cost to the Ukrainians. But is Donald Trump, if he did say, like, OK, we're going to agree, you get Crimea, you get the Donbass region, where you are right now, we freeze the lines de facto, full stop. Is Donald Trump in a position to do that deal if Ukraine says, no, we want to keep on fighting, and or the European leaders are willing to actually stump up the military might for them to do that?
Well, I think that's what we've got to find out on Friday. No deal is better than a bad deal, I think, in this case. And I don't want to repeat sort of discussions that others have had here, but absolutely. Zelensky has suggested that they could freeze the lines at the moment. But that is when Steve Witkoff went to meet Putin last week, bizarrely without an interpreter, relying on the Russians to interpret him. He got completely the wrong end of the stick and thought that the Russians were going to concede all these oblasts, which absolutely they were not. So the chance of a deal, and I really think, there is a possibility that that Trump may walk away from this, and Europe must step up. And it's obvious that it is far more important to us, peace in Europe and peace in Ukraine, than it is to Trump and the Americans.
And that's fair enough. And again, it seems to me to be perfectly reasonable. We should be helping to fund our own security in Europe. But the question is how strong is Europe going to be? Now, I've been very encouraged by Friedrich Merz, the new German Chancellor, in stepping up on this. We know, countries like Poland, they get it. They've got a Russian border as well. Certainly the tiny Baltic states. But again, they know they're next on the list, but they don't really have the sort of the money, the firepower. You need to have the big European nations to do that. But the key thing is, if there were a deal of any sort, it would realistically be just a de facto. It wouldn't be this has to be, I believe, a constitutional vote for the Ukrainian people to cede any territory of Ukraine. Zelensky's, it's not in his privilege or right to do. But realistically, any freezing of the lines now would be meaningless without a guarantee from America, from Europe, that there are no further, not one steel cap boot going over. But given that we offered a guarantee when Ukraine gave back their nuclear weapons to Russia all those years ago, and America and Britain signed up to that, along with Russia, ironically, we've already given up on that because we should have come to Ukraine's aid much more surely than that. And I'm not sure if I were Ukrainian, I would trust any pledge from the West now.
Well, Julia, I think we've eventually woken up. All you said is absolutely right. The Budapest Memorandum is meaningless, and we should have realised that. But we paid lip service to our defence in Europe since the end of the Cold War. We've now woken up. I personally believe, Friedrich Merz and the Germans and the Poles and the Scandinavian states, they are building up their military. So I think we do have the military power to enforce a peace if it comes to that. But I think we also need to consider actually going in with the Ukrainians if they can't come to a peace deal, because Putin's not going to stop fighting.
Are you talking about putting British boots on the ground?
I'm potentially talking about European military, including Britain, supporting Ukraine against Russia.
So fighting Russians, or saying we will police your borders and we will be there.
Police. I'm thinking more of providing no-fly zones so the Russians can't attack civilian targets in places like Kyiv and Lviv and elsewhere. And if Putin can't do that, that's what he does. He attacks civilian targets, as he did in Syria. If he can't do that, he is going to go backwards. So I think we need to look at all prospects, but let's hope that Trump does come good on Friday. But if he doesn't, we've got to be prepared to go all in to support Ukraine, because war in Europe, a wider war in Europe, is something that nobody wants.
Indeed. Hamish to Bretton Gordon, former British Army Colonel, thank you so much.